joined in. Appreciate you taking the time to meet with us. My name is Cindy Spillane, and I'm the Executive Director for the Daybreak Community Association. And tonight's meeting is to discuss our 2026 proposed budget. Each year we do a town hall to review the budget before the board approves it. They want to make sure that you have an opportunity as a homeowner to hear what is being proposed before the approval meeting. That meeting is currently scheduled for one day next week, but that will be confirmed shortly, so watch your emails for that verification. And so let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we often get the question as to what do your assessments pay for? And that is covered in our monthly financials. The financials for the Master Association, which is what we're going to be talking about the majority of this evening. Our financials are online for everyone to review at your leisure, and they're broken up into departments. They're listed on the screen. Department 1 is operating, and that is where the main expenses occur, is in our operating Department 1. Then for transparency and to make sure that everyone understands the individual costs of all of the other amenities that we have that require key card access, they're their own departments. We also have a separate department for Ochre Lake and the water course, even though those are not key card amenities. We want to make sure that the homeowners have visibility as to what those two water type amenities cost to maintain on an annual basis. So when you hear us talk about Department 1, it's operating. If we speak about Department 4 as an example, that would be East Lake Pool. You'll also notice on this slide, each pool has its own department and its own individual budget. Again, that is done for transparency, so you can see year over year as we get more units coming online, how the existing amenities, you get to see that value add with the additional units helping to pay that expense. So that is a breakdown, and you might notice, for those of you who were here last year, there is a new department, and it's called Cascade Pool. We'll talk briefly about that new proposed amenity in a little bit. So as you go through the financials and you look at them, not only are they broken down by department, but within the financials themselves, they're broken down into separate categories. And those categories, of course, are income or revenue, whichever way you want to refer to it. On-site services, that is the cost of the management team. We separate that out for transparency. Then you have a section called administrative services, which is exactly what that is. It tends to have, the audit, the taxes, things like that, office supplies, postage, telephones, those various things, legal fees fall under administrative services. Contract services encompasses our contracts. And so such as our landscape contract, our water contracts that we have to maintain our water amenities. We have our office rental, the patrol service for the common area patrols, things of that nature fall under contract services. Insurance is the insurance to cover the association's assets and amenities. Other expenses, those typically include capital improvements or contingency, and our loan interest expense is broken down into that. Parts and supplies, it's got our park supplies, such as our trash and dog waste bags, trash cans, things of that nature. Fuel for the association vehicles, miscellaneous, tools, nuts, bolts, things like that to maintain our equipment. Then we have our repairs and maintenance section. That includes the community gardens, the backflow testing, things as landscape repairs, replacing bushes and shrubs and turf and things like that that get torn up or die, that sort of stuff. Vandalism falls under repairs and maintenance. Taxes, we unfortunately all know what taxes are, and that is paid on our income. So our common areas are not taxed, they are tax exempt. So the tax that we pay is on our interest income we get from the investments from our operating and reserve accounts. And then I believe utilities, again, we are all very, very familiar with utilities on a personal level. That includes our culinary water, the electric, gas meters, and also our secondary water. A lot of our amenities are irrigated through secondary water, and we pay annual shares for those. So those are the categories of each of the financials. And that doesn't matter, all departments, all of them are set up in the same format and same template of those categories. So some of the income highlights that impact our 2026 budget is the addition of 300 new units is being projected for 2026. So that is a great insight into how well Daybreak is doing. We also continue to have 3 apartment communities, 3 of the 4. 3 of the 4 apartment communities have an agreement that they pay a reduced amount of the base assessment to allow their owners to be able to enjoy non-key card access amenities. That revenue helps offset our expenses. Bad debt stabilization, we were able to lower the expectation of bad debt. When you look at the financials, your bad debt is entered as a negative because we have to reserve for a certain amount of bankruptcies or things like that, because we have to plan for it to make sure that our assessments are set at a rate that we can continue to pay our bills when bad things happen to good people. Our reserve contribution, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And then as the Master Association, we plan for new amenities to come online as an example. So if a new amenity doesn't come online as budgeted, it was still included in the assessment we collected for that year. That money stays in the association's bank account and is considered a prior year surplus. Prior year surpluses historically for Daybreak has been used for projects such as adding a new amenity like park equipment in Noyo that wasn't originally there. And also in this case for 2026, we are taking $341,000 of that and putting it into the budget so that it offsets 2026 expenses, which reduces the 2026 assessment increase that we'll talk about later as well. The overall budget income line items consists of our assessments, of course, which in an association, that is our normal way of collecting. In Daybreak, we are fortunate we have some additional revenue sources. And the additional revenue sources help, again, to keep our assessments down. The telecommunity has an asterisk by it. That is our internet. It is a net zero impact because on the expense side, there's an exact expense amount for that. So CenturyLink bills the association the $33 per month that we then bill you. So when you pay it in your assessment, it's recognized as revenue. And when we pay the internet bill every month, it's recognized as an expense. The association does not increase, it is a direct pass-through. Excuse me. The apartment assessments we already discussed. Prior year surplus. We get a little bit of revenue from the DCC, the fitness, that kind of stuff for the community center. And then pool, we get a little bit of revenue for swim diapers and things of that nature. And then there's a couple of miscellaneous other items that we have in revenue that falls under other. Reserve contribution is up in the revenue income section, even though it's considered a contra revenue account. So it's listed as a negative. Reason being, it's not exactly an expense, so it reduces the amount of revenue that we have, and that goes into a separate bank account that we keep track of for you. And we'll talk a little bit more about reserves in a second. And here it is. That was a quick second. So our reserve study, for those of you who attended last year, you will remember we talked about we got an updated reserve study. We historically had done that every 3 years. We got an on-site visit update. And the reason that is important to have the reservists come out to the site is they need to look at the current condition of the amenities and the assets of the association. So as an example, if a pool deck is supposed to last 15 years, we have them come out every 3 years to look at it. Is it aging in accordance? And then it will change the expected remaining life of that amenity. And then that impacts our annual contribution amount and how much we need to have in the reserve fund balance bank account to make sure that we can fund it. So each year we need to increase. Now this is true for both the Master Association, which is what we're talking about, but at the end we will talk about the benefited service areas as well. And the reserves over the last few years have gone up a lot. The reason being is, as we all know, economic changes has been just a roller coaster of ups and maybe a few downs once in a while. And that relates to an association. Often people don't say, hey, how does an association get impacted by, the economics? Well, when we have to pay for repairs or services or take care of things for you, we are impacted by the same expense increases that you do when you reach out to a plumber for your house, or if you need a new roof or things of that nature. And so we are impacted on a really great scale with our reserves and the amount of amenities that we are covering and wanting to protect. One of the best ways to help if you think about selling your home or you're a potential new buyer coming in, one of the things that your mortgage company looks at is how well funded are the reserves. If you have a well-funded association, they have a less chance of a special assessment, which means a less likely of someone defaulting on a loan. So it is important on a personal level, as well as for the association amenities maintenance plan, to have a well-funded reserve for those reasons. So as you can see, in 2025, we contributed $933,800. And in 2026, we are going to be contributing $1 million. And then this goes out for a 30-year period so that we can evaluate it. Because the economy has changed so drastically, the board decided that they are going to get an update every 2 years. That way, hopefully, we can catch big swings sooner instead of later and minimize the impact for both the BSAs as well as the Master Association. Reserves is a very important item. I probably should have put this slide first. I'm sorry about that. But whenever I speak about reserves, I like to explain and make sure everyone understands there's two parts to a reserve plan. It is your money in your reserve bank account, your fund level, and then it is your annual contribution. Both of those need to be in line to be able to take care of the roof replacements, the painting projects, the pool replastering, all of the things that need to happen, whether it's a BSA townhome or whether it is an amenity, like we said, a pool. We have to make sure we have the funds available so that we can pay them to keep things maintained. So there's two big components to that. Both pieces have to be right in order to be successful on a reserve funding plan. All right, and so one of the things residents have found interesting year over year is how much is it costing individually for the various departments and components. So when we look at Department 1, operating, the administrative totals, that gives you the whole section and all of the individual line items that roll up into that section. And it shows you in 2025, your per unit cost was $27.11 per month. And in 2026, it will be $27.92. I am not going to read all of these to you. You can see them. This is also being recorded and will be put online. So for those of you who know insomniacs, who need something to lull them to sleep at midnight, let them know that the budget workshop is on the website and they are welcome to listen, and I will probably put them to sleep. So each one of those breaks down your per unit cost, whether it's an increase or a decrease from year over year. Up at the top, it shows that in June, we are still growing. So we always use June as the median unit count. And in the beginning of the year, it's a little shy. The end of the year, it's a little high, and it comes out when that's zero by using June to help us set our assessment rate. And that is 9,938 units projected in 2026, whereas the 2025 budget was based on 9,533. So you can see right there, we've had a positive growth. Excuse me. And the other thing, again, for those that's been around the block a few times in the association, you might notice that 9,938 means something else. That means in 2026, assuming everything goes as planned and we bring the units online, we should be nearing our 10,000th unit by the end of next year. And what that means is we have a second elected homeowner position that will be coming online. Right now, we have one homeowner elected position, which currently is Navy U. So this is kind of exciting about what's going to be happening in 2026, assuming unit and closings happen as projected in the budget. Again, these are the rest of the departments. The rest of the departments. So this is kind of a fun one. So this shows that in Ochre Lake, this is where the expenses really are being able to be positively impacted by the growth of the community. We also, you'll notice year over year annual totals that'll change. The budgeting process is like detective work. We go through every single line item and look for areas that we can cut costs or find savings, or maybe there's a project planned in one year that's not going to repeat in the next year. So all of those factors go into it. Then once the management team has a draft, we then take it to our homeowner-based budget and finance committee. And then they go through every department, every line item to see if we missed any savings or anything. So there are a lot of people who have eyes on this. And then the board does the same thing. So we work really, really hard as a team to be very considerate and to make sure that the board is doing their, financial fiscal responsibility for the association, while also taking into account the homeowner livability of the association and trying to balance those things equally. Okay. This is just another way of looking at the different departments, or rather the different sections of the financials. Some people like to see it in numbers, other people like to see it in graphs. So this is kind of a graph and what percentage of the overall budget each section is. Some of the expense highlights that we have within the 2026 budget. Again, there's, 50 different line items inside there. But some of the key elements, the reserve contribution, which we did talk about, we did need to increase. And this is the new pool amenity that's being proposed. So there is a proposed 2026 pool that may come online near August of next year. And so that is in the budget for an August start time. Now, again, construction, as we all know, especially if you're one of those who built a house, sometimes construction gets delayed. So it is planned for, it is, as sure as we can be at this point in time, or it wouldn't be in the budget, but we're excited to see how construction plays out and when that amenity actually comes online for us. And I think it has a little surprise in it. So you'll have to maybe come to the annual meeting on November 19th to find out what that surprise amenity might be within that new pool amenity. We also, our landscape contracts, we're in the second year of our 3-year contracts, and they all have a little bit of a 3% increase, I believe. And then also we have our landscape repairs, which is, again, we have our tree replacement program that we've been doing every year, doing a lot of catch up on trees that hadn't been replaced in years. I think he has 80 more scheduled for this fall to replace of our trees, and various other landscape repair projects. And then, of course, insurance costs. Ironically, for the Master Association, we actually found an overall savings in our insurance renewal, which occurs every year in September. For the benefited service areas, and we'll talk about briefly in a few moments, theirs did not go down. So let's go. Some of the things that we enjoyed this year that were new for us in 2025, Blue Sky Park. We have the shared co-house amenity, and the reason it is shared is it's also the LHM Info Center. So it's really a unique, beautiful facility. If you haven't had a chance to visit, please do so. They've done an incredible job on that. It's got a great amphitheater. We had a pumpkin walk at Live Daybreak over the last weekend. And it's just a great environment. We have multiple various paseos and other common areas throughout the Cascade Village that was also turned over. Some of them are passive parks, which means they're open spaces with no play equipment, or the active parks have play equipment. So what we're looking forward to in 2026 is that new pool amenity. They are continuing the bike path loops. And then we will be getting more passive and active parks as they progress, building out the Cascade and Upper Villages. So what does all of that mean? And I make you wait till the end so that you will stay for the whole presentation. So all of that we discussed is going to be a $2 per month increase for 2026 for the Master Association. So the base assessment, Base assessment means all operating costs with the CenturyLink separated out. That will go to $111.50 per month. CenturyLink is staying at the $33 per month. So your total monthly assessment for the Daybreak Community Master Association is $144.50, which is billed quarterly, and it will be billed quarterly at $433.50. This change takes effect as of January 1. You will also receive a budget notice in the mail with some of this information for you, with barcodes. What is that? Barcodes, because our budget is too big and it costs too much to mail them out individually like we used to do. So you'll have a link to those with all the detail in your letter, and then it will all be, once it's approved, it will also be posted on the website. So this is another question that we get a lot from people, is how have we fared over the years? And so this takes into account the increases we've experienced from 2008 to 2026. So for that period, we have realized on average an annual increase of just 3.51%, or $3.52 on average throughout those years. So we've been able, we do 5-year projection budgets and various different things so that we can try and do our best to keep your increases for the Master Association as minimal as possible. We're able to do that pretty successfully because we have continued growth. That really plays a big difference in what your annual assessments are. The more people contributing, the less individual impact you have on that one particular item. And now we're going to go into benefited service areas, but before I do that, are there any questions on the Master Association? Okay, so next we have benefited service areas, and benefited service areas only impact certain homeowners. Most of them are created in townhomes. There's a few other ones that are a little bit different. And right now we have 11 townhome BSAs and 4 other areas such as the snow pushing or the paired homes kind of things that we have. Now, what is unique about the benefited service areas is they pay an additional fee. So they pay the master fee because they have all the same rights and access that everyone has. But because they are in a service area, they get a service that regular other broader Daybreak community residents don't have, and therefore they don't pay for that. Only those persons in those service areas pay those expenses. These are the current benefited service areas that we have. So most all of them are townhome service areas except Island Village, Snow Pushing, Lake Village, and as I said, the paired homes are they're paired homes and they are not townhomes, and they're extremely different than the townhome service areas. So the expense highlights in the budget, the BSA budgets, I have them listed out a little bit more. You have a similar set of line items, but a service area budget is much smaller. You don't have as many line items as there are in the master budget. All right, so those are greatly reduced. The key elements within the reserve contributions for our BSAs, and I'm speaking in general because this applies to all of our townhome service areas, benefited service areas. Again, this goes back to the economic changes. So whereas the cost to replace a roof or the cost to paint a townhome building has increased, the need for your reserve fund balance to increase has gone up, which means we also need to increase your annual contributions and your reserve funding. So those did change, and all of those did increase a bit. Insurance renewals, and this is a big one. And so I really, for any of our service area residents who are online or here listening, this is a key component. So what we've done this year, so the insurance for a service area pays for the common area of that townhome association, right? And so what we cover is basically per state statute. A good way to look at it is if you turned your unit upside down and you shook it, whatever fell out, you need to cover on your personal, typically called an HO6 policy. The average increase we were seeing for insurance renewals that have come up so far was a 15% increase. So we really looked hard at that, and is there anything that we can do to save costs? One of the things that we found that could save costs on your service area assessment without negatively impacting you on an individual is increasing the service area deductible. The law states the homeowner is responsible to pay up to the insurance deductible for the association before that kicks in. And so by changing that from $25,000 to $50,000, we were able to get that average increase down from 15% in the service area to 9.4%. So we were able to reduce that impact for you by increasing the deductible to $50,000. What that means for you on an individual basis is you need to reach out to your insurance agent and say, hey, I currently have this coverage at $25,000. The association is changing that effective December 1. And I need to update my policy from 25 to 50. On average, it'll cost you maybe $25 or $30 per year on your personal policy, but you never pay more out of pocket than you have chosen as your personal insurance deductible. So you can choose a $500 deductible, $1,000, a $5,000, whatever your personal exposure risk tolerance level is. And then your policy will pick up the $50,000 for the association less your own personal portion. I'm really harping on this because it is imperative that you know that. You will receive a mailing about this as well. And we're also having, I think, a budget town hall with insurance sometime in November. So please watch your emails for those. And we will have the insurance broker go over that a bit more in detail for you. But I really want to make sure for our service area residents who are here tonight that you watch your mail and your email for the insurance information so that you can make sure that you are appropriately covered. Your landscape contracts, we're in year 2 of a 3-year contract, and on average, they went up a little bit, like 3%. And then your landscape repairs. The landscape repairs are what you see more on a day-to-day basis. That's the plants in your yard, the turf, the rock, the mulch, and things like that. And so that's all included, and we try to build on that gently so it doesn't adversely impact your assessment too much, but yet there's enough that we can try to do some plant replacements for everybody as much as we can. Your snow pushing, we went over and looked at that a little bit, and in most of the areas, we lowered it a bit. Now, snow pushing, I like to say, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know if it's going to be snowmageddon again next year, or if we're not going to have any snow at all. So we try to find a way to balance how much we are putting in your budget so that we cover you as much as possible without overfunding it for you. So it's a hard balance to try to strike because nobody has any way for certainty to know what kind of a snow year we're going to get. And so we did lower that a little bit, again, to help soften the impact of some of the other items that we had no control over on the increases. And then contingency, for a lot of you, we had a contingency line item. That has typically been to help you set aside some funds. If there is an issue, if we go over, say, example, in snow pushing, we had a little bit of money to help soften that. So hopefully we never have to come back to you for more. However, as we look at the insurance and reserve contribution increases in almost all of the service areas, we reduced those or got rid of those for 2026 to help you balance those out so it's not such a huge impact for you. With that said, there are increases for almost all service areas next year, but they have been truly minimized as much as possible. And so I'm not going to read this for you, but again, all of this will be sent to you in mailings. This recording will be online sometime tomorrow, I believe, or the next day. And then you will get it in the mail as well. So there's a couple of nuances for our island folks. We haven't let the cat out of the bag yet. We've been working on fine-tuning the BSA budgets to reduce them as much as we could, the impact. But the island voted as a unique VSA, they are not a townhome VSA. They had certain amenities. They voted to reduce what they kept specific to them down to 7 areas. And so they have a huge decrease in assessment for them, and that's the reason why for that. So that vote did pass overwhelmingly in favor of keeping the 7 areas for them. An email will be going out, or did it go out today to them? So that will be going out to the island BSA residents to let them know the outcome of that vote. So if you're one of them here tonight, you get a sneak preview. And that's my budget story for 2026. Are there any questions?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, well, then that will conclude our 2026 budget workshop. And again, we appreciate you taking the time this evening to spend with us. And hopefully this information has been informative. If you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and give me a call at the office, 801-254-8062. Thanks so much.